Thank you very much, Director of Ceremony. Thank you very much, President of the Rumi Forum, Emre Çelik, for inviting me to this glittering occasion. Thank you very much for assembling such fine people who are worthy recipients of the awards given in the name of Jalaluddin Rumi, especially to my colleagues, the diplomatic corps, ambassadors, excellencies, past and present, for gracing such an important event, members of the conference that will proceed tomorrow. I think that having been in Washington for 3 years, and some of you having come from as far afield as Cape Town, even Australia, Asia, Europe, and the rest of the world, I think I may be able to say to you, Hoş geldiniz, welcome. And ladies and gentlemen, there's no evening such as this would be complete without starting at the source. The source is the great personage of Maulana Jalaluddin Rumi. And I was amazed when paging through the Mathnawi, the great works of Rumi, to discover that something that I had heard about in the annals of Islam, he had turned into such a wonderful piece of poetry and a treatise of human behavior. He took a story of the fourth Caliph of Islam, who on a battlefield was about to kill his opponent. The opponent spat in his face and he withdrew his sword. And this is how Maulana Rumi tells the story in a way that teaches us far more lessons than we could ever imagine. And all I'm going to do is to do a truncated collection of verses out of that particular chapter of the Mathnawi. Rumi says, "Learn how to act sincerely from Ali. Know that the Lion of God was purged of all deceit. In fighting against his opponents, he got the upper hand and vanquished a certain knight, and quickly drew the sword and made haste to slay him. He, however, spat in the face of Ali, the pride of every prophet and every saint. Ali at once threw his sword away and relaxed his effort in fighting him. That champion was astounded by this act and by showing forgiveness and mercy without occasion. He said, 'You lifted your keen sword against me. Why have you flung it aside and spared me?' Ali said, 'I am wielding the sword for God's sake. I am the servant of God. I am not under the command of the body. I am the lion of God. I am not the lion of my passion. My deed bears witness to my belief. I have removed the baggage of self out of the way. I have deemed what is other than God to be non-existence. Anger is king over kings, and to me it is a slave. Even anger I have bound under the bridle, that my name may be he who loves for God's sake, that my desire may be he who hates only for God's sake, that my generosity may be he gives for God's sake, that my being may be he withholds for God's sake. Since I am free, how should anger bind me? Nothing is here but divine qualities. Come in, for the grace of God hath made thee free, because his mercy has the precedence over his wrath." That is what Rumi says in the Mathnawi. And I think that what brings together all of us under the banner of the Rumi Forum what makes the Rumi Forum understand the deeds of the wonderful people that we come to honor here tonight, Chef Jose Andres, Annette Lantos, and Dr. Ali Mazrui, is that for them to have achieved what they have achieved, they have had to free themselves from many other passions. That's what we come to reward tonight. Not simply the deeds that they have done, but the prior battles they have fought within themselves. This is what the conference that starts tomorrow will be discussing. How do we make this a methodology in the world today? Because so many people want to change the world without the desire to change themselves as a precondition. They want to match what they see as the outrages of the world with the outrages that come from within them. And so, when this conference commences tomorrow, it is a conference that is more unique than we can imagine. It is about building peace in the spirit of Rumi and under the guidance of an outstanding human being, Fathullah Gulen, Hoja Effendi. We all know that the Rumi Forum is part of a global Hizmet movement, the Gulen movement. People whose work stands even down in Cape Town, where I was governor for a while, in the number of schools that have been opened, in a mosque that is not simply a place for prayer in Johannesburg or outside Johannesburg, but that is indeed a hospital for the people, doing service across the African continent, bringing relief when disaster visits, and giving guidance when the minds are calm again and in need of spiritual and intellectual sustenance. And when we come to honor the three outstanding individuals here today, and we honor through that the work of the Hizmet movement and the Rumi Forum, we look at the dialogue centers, the schools, the hospitals, the relief work. And sometimes what we take for granted is not always instinctive in people. As Rumi tells us, the battle that Ali had in order not to be the slave of passion, but to make anger his slave. The change within that makes change without possible. It is counterinstinctive to do what an Ali Mazrui has done all his life, to empower people through education. Because sometimes there are teachers who don't always give everything, lest they think that they diminish themselves and make others more powerful. It is counterinstinctive to go into the nooks and crannies of the world and to find those who have been cast out politically and by virtue of their religions and their faith, as Annette Lantos has done, and to stand for them, even when, especially when you don't know them, but to defend their right, even when they are strange to you, because you stand for a principle, not simply in proximity to an individual. It is fascinating what the chef has done to understand civilizations through food, because it exemplifies a very simple fact in life, that human beings sometimes can't accept what they don't love. And they can't love what they don't understand. And they can't understand what they don't know. And to take the basic things and make knowledge about it and spread it like food is the first point on the road to acceptance of each other. And so what looks simple is an enormous collection of creative commitment to make things work, to do the counter-instinctive, as Rumi teaches us in his parable about Ali. And it's important that we do that, because what we have done in the world is to invert notions of strength and weakness. Nothing has shown it the last few weeks in the United States of America that we sometimes see the ability to talk to each other as a weakness. To withhold yourself is strength. The ability to compromise is seen as weakness. Staying rigid is seen as strength. The ability to negotiate with the other is seen as weakness. Standing apart and holding your line is seen as strength. This is the story that Rumi teaches. This is the message that he gives us. To see strength in what may appear weak, and to see the inherent weakness of what we hold up as strength in the world today. And it's because we have distorted the sources from within us where we draw from. We reward the anger and we call it valor. We reward the rigid and call it steadfastness. Whereas what Rumi tells us is that Ali could have been a hero by slaying his opponent and putting another scalp to his sword. He understood the moment that had he killed the man before the man spat in his face, he may have done it for a higher purpose. The moment the man spat in his face, he would have done it for his ego. His pride would have been hurt, and that would have been the motivation. And therefore, what Rumi teaches us, know where your emotion comes from. Are you indulging your ego, or are you still on the path of a higher purpose? Because that's what we come to celebrate tonight. That's what we come to exhort people to tonight. And every act of service is an expression not only of who we are, but what we draw from as we move forward. And more importantly, what we do and what we say must be the expressions of a soul that have purified itself in battle with itself. And the Gulen movement strives every day against the cliche of sensation, against the newsworthiness of the outrageous, against the magnet for journalists sometimes for the spectacular. It seeks to assert every day what is the default position of human beings, especially those who are called Muslim. What is the mainstream positions, and how do we cultivate that? And in its ordinariness, it gets lost from the media, but we must be able to reward people who work with the ordinariness every day. And that's simply the reason. If we were to do an unfortunate head count today, why more Sufis have died at the hands of Muslim extremists than non-Muslims, than Christians, than Jews, than Americans. because they need to negate the soft power of a community, the spiritual strength of a community, the essence of a community. And we mustn't join in the demonization of those who try to teach us the soft power and the spiritual essence and the greatness that comes from that default mainstream position. To end, we still live in a world where anger comes more easily than peace, and bitterness more easily than reconciliation, and revenge more easily than forgiveness. Sometimes it's mainstreamed in the sense that governments act on it. And I think what we need to do out of this is that we must be able to show the strength in peace, in reconciliation, in forgiveness. We must show the power of the soul as opposed to the power of our passions. And we must do so by being uncompromisingly democratic, by being unambiguously committed to human rights, and by being consistent in our demand for the rule of law everywhere, for every people, in every place, and never believe that there are people who are less deserving of democracy, of human rights, and the rule of law. Those are the things that we must leave here committed to. Congratulations to the recipients. Thank you very much to the Rumi Forum, Emre, for a job well done. And may we all here be warriors for peace. Fight for peace as militantly as what we can. Thank you very much.